I want to talk about leadership today. Many of us find ourselves in positions of leadership in our lives, sometimes formal, other times informal, sometimes on a permanent, ongoing basis, other times it's just something that happens periodically. And many of us will find ourselves in those kinds of positions in the future. So leadership is an important subject. We may have leadership simply at home with our family and our children, or it may be that we're in a position of leadership at work or at school. We may be in a position of leadership at our church, or perhaps in some other community organization that we serve. Might even be as simple as the fact that we're the leader among our friend group. We're the one that tends to organize things and put together events. Leadership is really important. Leadership brings organization. Leadership helps us to get things done and to accomplish goals. And yet, at the same time, leadership can be very tricky. I want to tell you a story about leadership from the Bible. In the book of Matthew, the mother of two of the disciples, James and John, comes to Jesus and asks Jesus if her sons, James and John, can be Jesus' number one and number two leaders in his new kingdom that he is building. And of course, the other disciples, when they overhear this conversation, are very bothered by that. And interestingly, this is not actually the first time this subject has come up. The disciples themselves, just a few chapters before, had argued about who among them was the greatest and essentially would be the top leader for Jesus in his new kingdom. And so Jesus took this as an opportunity to offer a key lesson about leadership. So in Matthew 20, verses 24 through 28, Jesus says this. He says, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and so to give his life as a ransom for many." So our call, Jesus says, in our positions of leadership is not to lead by asserting our authority again and again. It's not to lead with ego and with arrogance, but rather Jesus calls us to be leaders who serve. Jesus offers this model of servant leadership. And I think it's really important to understand that Jesus was a servant leader, and that did not make his leadership in any way weak or ineffectual. In fact, being a servant leader is one of the things that made Jesus' leadership great. He truly served and cared about the people that he led. And we see this most clearly in the fact that he laid down his life for us. So the question might be, if we're going to follow Jesus' example and seek to be servant leaders, what does that look like? So I'll offer a few key ideas about what a servant leader looks like. A servant leader is humble like Jesus was, humble and caring. A servant leader helps, teaches, and seeks to develop people. A servant leader listens. A servant leader appreciates and encourages the people that they lead. A servant leader trusts and empowers others. So wherever and whenever we find ourselves in positions of leadership in this life, may we follow Jesus' example and seek to be servant leaders.